In Lu Feng's car, Jay fell asleep. He woke up due to an instinctive feeling of danger. He opened his eyes and found that the car had stopped at the door of the lighthouse. The colonel had opened the door on his side and was staring down at him from a high position. "Didn't you sleep last night?" The colonel's voice was cold enough to freeze, and Jay was still dazed. He rubbed his eyes and sobered himself before getting out of the car. As a result, he was so sleepy that he didn't stand firmly and he fell forward toward Lu Feng. A pair of powerful arms held him. And Jay finally stood firmly and didn't fall, but he became really awake. The interior of the lighthouse was as quiet and busy as ever. As they walked down the corridor on the first floor, 4 soldiers carrying 2 corpses covered in white cloth passed by. Sarang followed them with a slightly pale face. Once he saw Lu Feng, he briefly explained there was an experimental accident and they were exposed. Lu Feng slightly nodded and took Jay to the elevator to go to the 10th floor. Dr. G stood in the middle of the 10th floor's corridor. "You came?" Lu Feng asked. "What's the matter? I want to borrow your little cutie for something." The doctor turned to Jay. "Come with me." Jay didn't know how he had become Lu Feng's, but he followed. The doctor took him to the familiar laboratory where Sinan was locked up. Through the transparent glass wall, Jay could see Sinan. However, it wasn't Sinan. Jay pressed himself to the glass wall. Inside was a black insect. It was a bit bigger than Sinan's original size and was half the size of an adult. There were 2 black compound eyes on top of the skull, a dark silver colour flowing in them. Between the 2 compound eyes stretched out a pair of antennae, while long translucent wings dragged behind it. Its abdomen was slender and covered with dark grey hair. The same hair also covered the limbs. It was like a bee. At this moment, it was flying around this transparent prison, its body constantly hitting the glass wall. It seemed to want to escape, but its chest, abdomen and limbs were constantly shaking like it was bearing great pain. Its condition is abnormal. The brain waves are very different from the previous records in the database. I suspect that it still retains some human consciousness, and this is fighting against the instincts of the heterogeneous species. I can't communicate with it effectively, so I would like to invite you to try. In this way, Jay stood in front of the communicator. "Sinan," he called out. Sinan's wings fluttered, but he seemed to hear nothing and continued flying around the space. However, Jay was sure there was a moment when the eyes glanced at him. "Sinan?" he asked. "Do you remember Lily?" The rustling sound briefly stopped, and moments later, the grey bee hit the glass wall even more violently. He gazed at Sinan and gently wondered, "Do you have anything to say to her?" Sinan's wings trembled wildly, but he had lost his human voice organs. He could only present his thoughts to the doctor through irregular troughs and crests on his brain waves. Dr. G said, "The brain waves have changed. He understands." "Who is Lily?" And Jay's eyes were slightly dazed. His conversation with Lily was a secret that no one knew, but now there was other way. An hour later, the door of the lab opened, and Jay turned around. The first thing that caught his eye was a white dress. "Mrs. Lu?" Dr. G's voice was slightly surprised. "Why are you here?" And Jay raised his head and saw a woman with the gentle posture of a lady at the door. She had long black hair, loosely twisted up behind her head. She wore a light blue mask, and only a pair of gentle black eyes could be seen. Her body was slightly plump, and this made her look kinder. The girl she was holding with her right hand was Lily. There were also 2 Eden staff members to the left and right. The distortion rate in the Garden of Eden has increased in the past 3 months. I have to submit a report to the Lighthouse and ask them to make a final decision. I also received the Lighthouse's application for Lily to assist in a certain job and came here. Dr. G said, "I troubled you. This is an unusual outing." Mrs. Lu handed Lily over to Dr. G. "Please treat her kindly. Please rest assured." The transfer was over, and Mrs. Lu slowly turned her head. On the other side of the room was Lu Feng. He had been watching her since the laboratory door was opened. "You're here too," she stated. Lu Feng's eyes slightly drooped as he said, "Mother, it seems to be an important study." Mrs. Lu looked at him. At this moment, one was at the door to the room and the other was in the corner of the room. They were diagonal to each other as their eyes met. Mrs. Lu looked gentle while Lu Feng's eyes were calm. And Jay witnessed this scene, and his intuition told him that there were unknown undercurrents in this gaze, but he couldn't understand. 10 seconds later, Mrs. Liu opened her mouth. "I should go!" The two staff members with her turned around, and they protected her. The footsteps went away, and Dr. G closed the door. "This year is the 35th year that Mrs. Liu has worked for the Garden of Eden." His eyes seemed to be stunned. "She is really a great woman. Why didn't you say a few more words to her?" Lu Feng stared at the closed silver door. "We haven't seen each other in a long time." "That is why you should speak to her even more. Did your work in the trial court make you cold-blooded and ruthless?" Dr. G wondered. "Remember when I helped you mess up the monitoring on the 20th floor when you were a child, so you can run to see her? The sugar that Mrs. Liu gave me was delicious." "Dr. G, speaking less isn't bad for you." Dr. G shrugged. 3 seconds later, he suddenly said, "I did it seamlessly at the time. Do you think that the monitoring has been repaired after so many years?" Lu Feng glanced at Lily and then Anjay. "It doesn't seem to be." Lily was already pressed against the glass wall. Her eyes were staring at the bee-shaped, heterogeneous species behind the glass. There was the joy of seeing something new in her always apathetic eyes. "Is this a bee?" The grey bee leaned against the glass wall. In contrast to her, its movements finally became briefly stationary, yet a moment later it convulsed painfully. "It looks to be in pain." Lily glanced at Anjay, apparently recognizing him. "Did you want me to come and see the bee?" Anjay's voice was low. "It is Sinan." Lily was stunned. Just when Anjay thought she was going to show sadness, she suddenly laughed. "Sinan." She crossed to the glass wall and told the grey bee, "You're going to fly." She had no fear in her eyes. She had never seen a monster kill or warned to stay away from heterogeneous species. A bee was no different from a human in the eyes of the child. She wasn't even surprised that Sinan had become a bee. Presumably, it was because in the eyes of a child, the world was always so unpredictable. "It is messy again." Dr. G watched the instrument. "Just 3 seconds ago, its brainwaves were very close to human." Dr. G patted Lily on the shoulder. "Lily, help us with a request." "What is it?" "Sinan's consciousness is fighting the bee's consciousness. Perhaps you can help him wake up. Can you keep talking to him?" "Yes," Lily nodded. "Can you turn me into a bee?" "If you also become a bee, then Eden will shoot me. It would be better if you could communicate with him. We need to know how he was infected. The source of the infection must be in Eden, but nothing has been found so far. Only by finding it as soon as possible can we ensure the safety of the main city." "Okay," Lily put her hand on the glass wall. "Will you pay me?" Dr. G asked. "What do you want?" "I don't want to be on the 20th floor." Lily placed her cheek against the glass. "I'm sorry, that is beyond my ability." "Well, I guessed." Lily looked back at the grey bee. "I'll try." She did work hard all afternoon, but Sinan's condition was either good or bad. He only gave normal feedback a few times, but according to Dr. G, this situation was much better than before. He decided to continue to invite Lily tomorrow. The doctor was busy with other research tasks, and Lily didn't like to communicate with other people, so in the next few days, Anja would also accompany Lily and Sinan at the lighthouse. At 7 in the evening, Lily's physical strength and energy as a child had run out, and she was sent back to Eden, and Jay could also get off work. He had fallen asleep in the car at noon and was almost killed by Lu Feng. This time, he learned his lesson and spent the whole journey awake. Similarly, he faced the door to his place in an awake manner. It was a closed door. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then Lu Feng's amused voice rang out behind him. "Why aren't you going in?" And Jay took a deep breath. Going into the pipe last night was one of the 2 wrong decisions he had ever made in his life. The other was to go to the windy wilderness on the night of February 14th. He regretted it. The colonel naturally understood his predicament and told him, "The main city's office takes 3 days to replace an ID card. You have to find a place to stay until then." Then, he calmly swiped the card at his door and walked in. On the other side of the door, Anjay stared at him, frowning slightly while biting his lower lip gently. It seemed like he was thinking about something. Lu Feng didn't speak and just watched him. Time went by quietly. Then Anjay turned and pressed the elevator button. "Then I'll go find Sereng."